Hey, what up, Long Beach? Welcome back to the show, your weekly 5-minute rundown of everything going on local sports.
The show is brought to you by the Long Beach Post and hosted by us, Mike and JJ of the 562.org, where it's time to talk about the playoff percentages for Long Beach football.
Let's start at the top of the Moore League standings, where Long Beach Poly is coming off that big win at Wilson last week. And it's almost safe to say that a 3-3 team has a 100% chance of making the playoffs.
They actually clinched a playoff spot the moment the season started because there's 24 teams in Division 1/2, and all 24 of them are going to the playoffs. So Poly's pretty easy. They are 3-3. They're 2-0 in the Moore League, but they have a 100% chance of making the playoffs unless they should end up having some sort of issue that forced them to shut the program down because of the fact that they're in Division 1 and 2. All those teams are going to the playoffs.
Jackrabbits could end up in Division 2 for the first time in, well, forever. And Poly fans are kind of split on whether or not they want that to happen, because you and I both agree a Poly football team in Division 2 is a possible champion.
Yeah, I think that they have a much better chance of winning that division. Fans there obviously feel, as you mentioned, they haven't really previously won their championships in lower divisions. But for us, I mean, I don't know. Would you rather be an 8 seed in Division 1 and go to Mater Dei in their first round, or be in a playoff bracket with teams where you're going to be competitive and have a chance at winning? I would rather be in the competitive division.
Poly not alone at the top of the Moore League standings. The Lakewood Lancers are 3-0 in league after a rough start against top competition. They are in Division 9 with games against Wilson, Compton, and Poly left. They are receiving votes in that Division 9 poll, so the Lancers back in a big way with Scott Meyer at the helm. And I'd say their chances of making the playoffs are probably around 75 to 80% chance, because if you're receiving votes at this time in the year and you've got winnable games like a game against Compton coming up, Lakewood could have 4 wins in league, and that'll get them into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think regardless of how they do, whether they can beat Wilson and Poly or not, Lakewood is really the only Moore League chance that I see with a shot at an at-large bid. So I think that higher percentage chance is good for them, because certainly it looks like first, second, or third place, obviously very much within play for a team that's tied for first right now. But even if they should fall out of third place, they'd have a shot at that at-large.
There are only 3 guaranteed playoff spots for the teams in the Moore League. We already talked about the Jackrabbits, already talked about the Lancers, and now let's talk about the Wilson Bruins. They're not dead yet. They just lost 1 game. Wilson is 6-1, 2-1 in league after losing to Poly last week. They are number 4 in Division 7 with games against Jordan, Lakewood, and Millikan left on the schedule. So number 4 in Division 7, you got to give them a high chance of making the playoffs. And really, that game against Millikan last week of the season could decide 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place.
Yeah, I would give Wilson personally like a 99.9% chance of going to the playoffs. I think that they're going to end up in that 2nd place spot because I like their chances against Lakewood in a week and a half. But one way or another, as you mentioned, they've been a top team in that division. I think they should still be the number 1 team in that division. I don't think losing to a team in 1/2 should have dropped them from 1 to 4. But obviously, I like the Bruins' chances to not only get to the playoffs, but make some noise once they do.
The Millikan Rams are in a tough spot right now after recent losses in league. Rams are 2-5 overall, 1-2 in league, and in Division 6, it's tough going. They've got games against Compton, Cabrillo, and Wilson left, so 2 of those are very winnable. But I'd say, 50-50 coin flip that Millikan's even able to make the playoffs as an at-large when they take on Wilson in the final week.
Millikan realistically has got to win all 3 of their last games if they want to go to the playoffs. So I think 50% makes sense because you've got to take care of business against Compton, you've got to take care of business against Cabrillo, and then it just comes down to that Wilson game. If they can win that game, they could absolutely get in, and if they can't, then they can't.
We got to go to J-Town, where Jordan Panthers are coming off a thrilling homecoming victory over Compton, and they're alive. Jordan is 4-2 overall right now, 1-2 in league. They're in the packed Division 12, though, where Division 12 has so many teams that there really isn't going to be able to be an at-large availability for the Panthers. But they've got games against Wilson, Cabrillo, and Poly left. So I'd put it, 20-25% chance that Jordan is able to sneak in as an at-large in D12.
If Jordan wants to get into the D12 playoffs, I mean, I don't think they have a shot in at-large because I don't think there'll be any at-larges in that division. There weren't any last year. So I think about that 20-25% makes sense because I think they've got to beat Wilson, Cabrillo, and Poly if they want to go to the playoffs.
I think we should put a similar 25 to 20% on Compton, 3-3 and 0-2 in league. Obviously they've still got some winnable games in league, but they should have already gotten a win that would put them in so much better position. But like 20 to 25% in Division 11 is pretty good for Compton considering the way their season has gone with games against Millikan, Poly, Lakewood, and Cabrillo left on the schedule.
Cabrillo off to a tough start at 1-5 and 0-2 in the Moore League. They're in Division 11 with games remaining against Poly, Jordan, Millikan, and Compton. Realistically, Cabrillo's got to win all 4 of those games to finish at 5-5 and 4-2 in league to clinch a third place spot and a berth in the playoffs. So I would say their chances of making the playoffs are whatever you think their chances of beating Poly, Jordan, Millikan, and Compton are.
Outside the Moore League, but still very exciting this week. St. Anthony going to be at home hosting LaSalle in their homecoming game at Clark Field. It's Del Rey League season for the Saints, and they are 1-0 in league. In Division 9, receiving votes, games against LaSalle, St. Genevieve, and St. Paul left in their league schedule. They've got to finish second in that Del Rey League to make the playoffs, though. They're in good position now with a little bit of momentum, and 2 of those remaining 3 games at home, I'd give the Saints about a 60% chance.
I think they have a very good chance. That win over Harvard Westlake last week was huge because last year they finished 3rd in the Del Rey League with losses to St. Paul and Harvard Westlake. By beating them, if all they do for the rest of the season is do what they did last year, even with a loss to St. Paul, they'd be 2nd place in the Del Rey and they would be in the Division 9 playoffs. All right, that's been another episode of The Show brought to you by the Long Beach Post and the 562.org. We do have announcing our first ever merchandise available at the 562.org. You can sign up as Patreon subscribers and get yourself a fancy new hat. Go to the 562.org to find out how.
Fresh lid, fresh show every week. You got to follow local sports right here.